Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the high-grade Victory 2 Assault Buster Gundam from Mobile Suit Victory Gundam. So this right here isn't a new release by any margin. This is a 2015 kit, so it is 10 years old at this point, and this is from back in that period where Bandai was reviving all of its high-grade to the then current high-grade standard, which still holds up decently today. When it does come to the Victory 2 Assault Booster Gundam, it's one over-the-top, tiny little Gundam with a whole load of weaponry, and when it does come to this high-grade kit right here, there isn't just one, not two, but three potential builds in here. So once again, this is kind of one of those kits you might want one, two, or three of, and if you are looking to get one of your own, you can get yours exactly where I got mine, and that is through those fantastic people over at Bai. Link is down there in the description. Now let's get this thing built. So when it does come to busting open this box, this is your average size Gundam box with pretty much your average sized amount of gunpla plastic inside of it. First up, when it does come to the manual, this is the Universal Century pamphlet type with all the information on the front, and when you do open it up, you can see it's the usual kind of build inside of here. Now I will mention this is an olderish kit, so that does mean there isn't a full translation inside of this like you will see in more modern kits, but it is easy enough to follow. When it does come to the runners, as you can see right here, we've got 9 runners, not including the polycap, so 10 in total, and like I mentioned, this is a polycap based build. When it does come to the runners of plastic in here, this is divided into the usual Gundam white, red, yellow, and blue. We do have grey for the joints and the weapons, and we do have a little bit of injection gold in here, thankfully for nothing too functional, just for some exterior armor. Again, this is somewhat of an older kit, so it is based on some polycaps. The good point of that is, usually a lot of the time it does mean that these kits are very kit bashable with each other, but sometimes they can be a little bit on the loose side, which I have found on this kit a little bit, but not too much. Besides that, we've got a sea of stickers in here, so quite a bit, include one giant one. I'll just jump ahead. That is for on the shield. Again, not the worst, not the best, but they did keep most of the stickers for recessed parts, the backpack, and the accessory, so the Gundam itself is relatively unscathed. So it does come to the build of the high-grade Victory 2 Gundam right here, or should I say the high-grade Victory... Actually, now that I'm mentioning it, I did do a review of the high-grade Victory 2 Gundam if you do want to check that out, and this is very similar as you'd expect, as it is the upgraded version. Also, like it does say in the instructions, there are 3 builds in here. That is the Victory 2 Buster Gundam, which is in your typical Victory Gundam kind of colors. Then you've got your Victory 2 Assault Gundam, which is it with all of the gold on it. And then finally you've got the two bashed together into the Victory 2 Assault Buster Gundam, which is what I'm going to be building today. Now this is old school revive style gunpla through and through. So that means it's a case of tons and tons of polycap sandwiches. And what I mean by that is you've got one side of a limb, part, or something like that. You throw a bunch of polycaps into it, and then you throw the other side on. Simple, effective, it does lead to a lot of seam lines throughout the build, and I will also mention that I guess Bandai were getting a little bit funny about polycaps back in 2015, because some of the actual joints in here are plastic joints shaped like polycaps, so you know, visually here in the build, you're not going to be able to tell them apart. Some are hard plastic, some are rubbery. Again, as you move on through the build, you see a lot of old, revived typical aspects. Like I said, usually just exterior armor popped onto polycaps, and then everything is just joined together. We do have stickers in here as well. Like I mentioned, a lot of these are for recessed aspects. So you've got a lot of vents and whatnot around the actual Gundam itself, little bits of recessed colors here and there, especially in the gold armor where you have some blue elements, but overall they're not too bad. You also have the option of builds throughout this particular kit. Now, because there is no English inside of the manual, it does mean it could get a little bit confusing. It's easy enough to tell the difference, but there is no English or anything. It's katakana basically telling you which part you're going to be building and how. Now, I thought throughout the build that this was going to be swappable apart by the end, because a lot of the things like the front skirtings and the knee armors and all that stuff are fairly easy to just kind of take on and pop back on. But when we do get a little bit further into the actual build of this kit, you will be seeing the fact that the weapons and the thrusters around back are a little bit more complexly put together, so they're not really as pop on, pop off to change between the Assault Buster and the Buster Gundam. Now again, I'm totally jumping all over the place with the build right here, but we also do have the kind of core fighter or core flyer included in here. That is a build you can have on its own, just to have it kind of jetting around the place and whatnot. Personally, I would have preferred to actually have a secondary backpack so you can just pop off the Buster and then pop on the Assault, but instead they included this, which I'm probably going to put in a box forever and never see again. Anyway, continuing on through the build, when you get to places like the torso on this kit, there's next to nothing to it. I mean, this is such a simple torso. No actual articulation, nothing like that. It is tiny, so there's just a few parts that throw together. The arms have some interesting aspects to them. Again, you will be choosing what you're building as you're building up in the shoulders, because the Buster Gundam and the Assault Gundam do share parts in the shoulders, but they are a little bit different. Again, the swap here is simple. It's just one piece off, one piece on, so those sort of things are easy to swap. The actual arms themselves have some nice moving parts inside of them, so we've got the elbow joint, that little red section around on the elbow, and a little bit of extra movement down towards the hand, which is always nice. The head on here is incredibly simple. It's just one big red piece, the mouth muzzle, you throw a whole bunch of stickers for the eyes, the top, front camera, and the rear camera, and then just slap on the back, the front, and the V-fin, and you're done. Now we'll mention while jumping onto the backpack here, we don't have the standard backpack adapter, which is a little bit weird for a Revive kit. They went for this single point one instead, so it means you're not going to be swapping backpacks on this kit, which is a little bit, or a lot of bit of a disappointment. Besides that, there is quite a bit of building to the actual backpack itself. We've got the huge cannon up on the Buster aspect of this, which is, again, simple. It's just a fairly hollow unit with just exterior armor aspects, but the way it actually connects onto the thrusters is unique. We've got some C-clips on here, and we do have big, massive stickers for inside of these for the thrusters, and these actually don't work out that badly. Again, there are a lot of stickers on this kit, but besides the one on the shield, they're all very tastefully used on the actual design, so they're never too in your face. They're always hidden away a bit. Next up, we do have the Mega Beam Rifle. Again, a lot of big pieces just attached together. Some horrendous hollow sections in this, which I haven't seen in some time. Bandai really aren't cutting corners on high grades anymore. Even when you get this finished off, popped together, you can still see in under to the hollow aspects, which isn't so nice. Beam rifle, nice enough, pops together with a whole bunch of parts. Again, a weird hollow aspect you can just see from behind. And then there is the shield, which is decently color separated to a point, and then you've got a whole load of stickers in the front. Again, not too bad, not too great, but let's see what we ended up with in the end. So now jumping on into the aesthetics, and this right here is what the high-grade Victory 2 Assault Buster Gundam looks like, just out of the box, snapped together with pretty much nothing done. All I've actually done is panline that one little bit on the face right there, and the reason for that is I actually find after putting your kit together, this is one of the hardest parts to panline and clean up, so I do it beforehand. Hopefully I'll get around to actually panline the whole thing sometime in the future, but today is not that day. So overall, when it does come to the high-grade Victory 2 Assault Buster right here, I'm actually shocked. When it comes to the build of this kit, it's a little bit on the old school side, not too old school, just medium old school, and there's a lot of seam lines when you're putting it together, and there's a lot of stickers and a lot of bare empty spaces that does kind of feel like you're getting something that really isn't all that impressive. But what is actually crazy is once it is all put together and finished, and you pop it down like what you're seeing right here, it's a nice looking kit. Now, this hasn't even been panlined. There's a lot of nice detail running up the arms, across the backpack, and in a lot of different places. Some on the sides of the legs, some nice fine pan lines that could really do it popping out, which would break up all of that white nicely. But even if you get the light just right so you can kind of highlight those, they do look great. Overall, the design is very, very nice. The injection gold is as injection gold is, and overall not too bad in here. It would always be a little bit nicer if you did give that a little bit of paint, but you could say that for the entire kit. This aesthetically is really, really, really nice. Everything's just kind of distributed color-wise and detail-wise across the Gundam in a perfect sort of way. Overall, it just is really, really, really cool looking. Now again, there is 3 options to build in here. This is the option, the first, the actual Victory 2 Buster Gundam itself, but you can actually build the Victory 2 Assault Gundam like this right here, I'll just put it on the left, or the Victory 2 Buster Gundam on this side. So as you can see, this one in the middle is a combination of them both. Personally, visually, I do like the look of the Victory 2 Buster. So I'm just wondering if I will change to that at some point, or do I need to actually go shopping and get another couple of these just to kind of have them all? But yeah, when it does come down to it, the out-of-box build of the Victory 2 right here is a little bit on the plain side, compared to more modern gunpla that has a lot more going on, more details from under layers, etc. busting through to kind of break up all of the white. This does look a little bit on the plain side, which you could definitely call anime accurate to some degree. And speaking of which, there it is side by side with the art, and as you can see, Bandai have downright nailed it. It just looks exactly like it, well, in every possible way. Even though there are some stickers in its build. They do make up for any lack of color separation, and you know, you could paint those yourself as well. The foundation here is just plain perfection. Even from the back, they've nailed it entirely too, with one kind of odd aspect. Actually, I would almost say two. So first off, we are missing a little bit of blue down here because this is the core fighter sticking out from the back. So that should be blue on the bottom, but again, that's an easy enough thing to paint up yourself once you're putting it together. But the other aspect is we do have the butt flap sections of the buster in here, which is kind of funny because it's not actually present on the art on the right hand side there. Not sure what the deal with that is, but it's always nice to have a little bit more splash of color. So in case you're wondering where the stickers all went on this particular kit, because there's quite a few and quite a lot of large ones on here, well, starting with these grays right here, these are the vents. These are all those various kind of vent style sections around the place. As you can see, if you get in close, they do look like stickers. I always recommend, if you're building a kit straight built with the stickers, to give it a matte top coat, because it will take the shine away and almost make it look like plastic, especially if you've recessed, say, the center part into the plastic underneath using something like a toothpick. Again, when it does come to stickers, recessed stickers are never the worst, and these don't look too bad at all, but if you are going to be painting the details yourself, you will need some grey. As for these two red ones right here and those big old yellows, these are for on the backpack. The red sections lie right up here on top, just like so, and the yellow ones, again, because they're recessed, in a way you may not even notice these in here. They do work quite well. Again, a bit of a matte top coat on that, and you won't even notice at all. The green ones right there, those are your typical camera lenses, so we've got one up on the head there that I actually can see is a little bit on the crooked side right there, on retrospect, and we've got some in the eyes as well, and one around back. As for all these ones with a little bit of a black outline, well, those are all over the place. These little blue ones in the center of these three gold sections, those are some of them. And the other ones are these absolutely lethal black and red ones, which are on the shield. The big old yellow and black section is one of those too. So the shield is the worst affected when it does come to stickers. So yeah, if you're going to be painting or detailing anything, you might want to be thinking about this bad boy. So next up in here, talking about those model kit sins, aka the knobs, the molds, and the seams. So seam lines are your biggest enemy on this kit. In close, pretty much every section of this kit is made out of two parts sandwiched together. This is definitely, you know, the case when it does come to old school kits. So as you can see, everything has a seam line running up it somewhere. They can be hidden a little bit like this right here, but you'll see these parts then have the seams. And the knobs on the blue do turn up quite a bit. Now there are some aspects that which kind of shocked me a little bit, like this blue section right here, this knob. I actually thought like some of these would be kind of covered up in a way that, you know, gunpla sometimes does. When you actually build on further parts afterwards, it will cover up real obvious surface knobs, but there are quite a few surface knobs on this kit. I tried to demolish them entirely, but they'll still pop up here and there. However, when it does come to something like mold lines, I'm not seeing really many at all on it, and never found them too much of an issue during the build. So next up there's that full 360-degree spin, so you can see every aspect of it for yourself, just in case there's something I forgot to mention. Again, I am very impressed with this kit. I was shocked that I was impressed by it. I was actually impressed by the high grade Victory 2 and the master grade Victory 2 as well. So what they've done here is very, very, very nice. It looks bulky. It is a smaller mobile suit because it is a late UC kit, which does mean it is a little bit on the smaller side, but the overall proportions are just really, really cool. All the colors have been laid out so nice. The asymmetry up in the backpack works so well, and like I mentioned, there are 3 builds in here, so even if you do want some kind of a variant on this, you don't like the gold, you can go for the Buster. If you don't really like the asymmetrical backpack, you can go for the Assault. There's so many choices in here, it actually is difficult to choose just one, and overall this just looks great in the end. I'm surprised at how impressed I am. So next up, the size comparison, and as you can see there, it is side by side with the Oryx 78-2, the high grade Revive on the left, and the real grade 2.0 on the right, aka the average size of a regular old Gundam. So as you can see, even though it is quite a little bit shorter than both of those guys, just kind of straighten out the shoulder there a bit, the amount of bulk it's got really does make it seem like it's not so small anymore, like your average Victory Gundam. Okay, so moving through some more high grades now, there's the high grade Ariel on the left hand side, high grade G-Self, high grade Gundam EX, high grade Gundam Barbatos, high grade Freedom Gundam, high grade G-Quax, and the high grade Dom GQ. So now jumping on into the accessories, and here's absolutely everything that comes inside of the box with the high grade Victory 2 Assault Buster Gundam. So what we get in here is the Assault Buster backpack. When it comes to the equipment, we've got the beam rifle, a shield, Mega Beam Rifle, as well as the V2 Core Fighter, and a little bit of a base adapter attachment for using with it. On top of that, inside this box right here, I've got all the little pieces that can convert this into pretty much the other two forms, being the V2 Assault Gundam or the V2 Buster Gundam. Again, this isn't necessarily something you can do overly easy. It does involve taking it apart a little bit in order to do it, or as an optional build when you're building it. So first up, when it does come to the hands in here, these are your simple block hands only, and there are no options. This is what they look like. So again, your simple standard square hole holding hand in gray. So this means it will match very well with the sold separately hands that are out there if you do want some posed options. Again, this was a 2,000 yen kit when it did come out, so not too shocking. So next up here, not necessarily an actual accessory, it's its backpack, but I just decided to kind of keep it separate for a second. When it comes to the articulation, this is quite impressive. The thrusters here can move up and down, and they can also move in and out just enough to kind of get that nice V shape that you like with your V Gundams. So this does open up just like this as well, so that is incredibly nice looking, and over here is exactly the same as the other side. These are attached onto this thing by simple ball joints, and this entire unit just attaches into a poly cap right here, which is a little bit on the weak side. And this right here is what you get when it is attached on, so just what we're seeing throughout the review so far. And one nice thing about it is I was about to say it's not overly back heavy, but now it's like trying to fight to fall backwards. But yeah, if you do get everything lined up just right, it stands up without an issue, without a stand, pretty much perfectly. And speaking of which, it's time to get it up on the stand. So it does come to getting this up on a stand. The stand hole is right between the legs. This is something that I'm usually not too big of a fan of, because it does mean when you do get a stand in here, Bandai or otherwise, you can end up with the issue where it can kind of block the legs coming together a little bit. Not too bad if you want widespread dynamic poses, which you probably will up in the air, but if you want to bring two legs over to one side or something like that, it can block that a little bit. Bandai seems to have move those holes backwards a little bit in recent kits. So the first of the weapons we have in here is the beam rifle, which is quite simple, all in grey. The only thing that isn't in grey is the two stickers that are popped in here. They catch the light very, very nicely. We do have a little underslung aspect to this as well, which you can just pop off simply for the standard beam rifle, or just pop it on, which does look incredibly nice from the front. We do have a little bit of a weird hollow part in the back, however, but if you're looking at it from the front, you're not going to be seeing that. And it does really add a nice thick dimension to the beam rifle, which I really like. So getting this into the hand, you can actually take the back of the hand off and pop it in, but you can kind of cheese it on in there by kind of wiggling it and pushing it a little bit, so it does slip on in like so. Again, this is a nice looking beam rifle. That underslung little aspect underneath it really gives it some extra heft. Also, I will mention, after kind of getting a little bit used to posing this, now I will mention I actually filmed the articulation before doing the accessories today, but I'm going to flip it in the actual video. But I'll mention, in it that I did mention it kind of falls apart a lot. You could kind of get used to how it falls apart and start kind of almost making up for it yourself. You'll realize the shoulders are going to pop. The knee is likely to actually fly off entirely. But if you hold it in just the right places and get a little bit used to it, you can actually pose this quite happily and get a nice pose out of it like this right here. Just kind of have to learn to love the kit, I guess. So next up in here, we've got the Mega Beam Rifle, which, as it kind of name suggests, is a beam rifle which is mega. Now, this doesn't actually do anything at all. This hollow part is absolutely tragic, however, I will mention, so that you may want to fill in yourself. You're not going to see it from most angles. I'll pop in a pose soon so we can see if we actually do see anything when it is posed in the air. Overall, kind of plain, but there is some nice detailing on the surface that definitely needs a little bit of ink. So when it comes to getting this equipped, it attaches into the hand pretty much the same way as the beam rifle, but it goes up from below, which made me a little bit worried at first. Would it actually have the strength in the hand to hold this up? That gravity just wouldn't just pull it on out again. And the great news is it actually fits in great. And it does look really, really cool. The one thing that actually blows me away though is that Bandai decided to put a hollow facing segment, or should I say a hollow segment, forward facing, so even if you get this in a nice dynamic pose, you're just going to see it all of the time. It looks great, but that's a big letdown. So the last of the equipment in here is the shield. Now this is just made out of a big bit of white plastic attached onto a blue bit with 3 white bits. The rest is just stickers. That big V, all that black, all the black and red is stickers, so if you do want this to look good, you will have to detail it up. Again, hollow parts aplenty around back, and the handle there not looking necessarily all that great. Again, the equipment in here, the accessories definitely feel like a little bit of an afterthought, which kind of makes me wonder why they really included this. If this wasn't included, you could have some nicer of these, and that I would have preferred. So again, this attaching to the hand is the same old routine. You just slide it down from above just like so. Now this, to me, I really feel does cheapen the overall look of the kit. The stickers don't look great, the yellow doesn't even match the yellow on the actual kit itself, and it's just a flat on top, hollow on the underside sort of affair. It isn't all that great. Some matte top coat might take away some of the shines of the stickers, blend them in a little bit, but even at its foundation, the actual plastic, it doesn't look that great. So last up in here is the V2 Core Flyer. So this doesn't really do anything whatsoever. This is just what it looks like. It's just this, I guess. What can I say? This does have a little bit of a hole back here for attaching this adapter section into. Pops in there just like so. And then you can attach this onto a base adapter like this. And you can post this in the air, doing that. Again, I do kind of feel a little bit kind of torn here that Bandai did include this while skimping on the nice equipment. This is a cool weapon. This could have been a nice shield, but both are kind of incomplete, and I kind of wish we got complete weapons as opposed to this right here. It is nice to have the core fighter separate so you can actually display it with your kit, which is kind of a cool look overall. That is quite nice. Again though, is it worth all of those hollow parts? Alright, so jumping on into the articulation, and in order to do this I'm just going to pop off that backpack. You can kind of see now why this has no standard backpack adapter to some degree, because this is meant to be the folded up core unit inside of it. So anyway, let's check it out. So it does come to getting this into the usual pose. It's not the greatest feeling thing to pose in the world ever. It is a little bit on the flimsy side in a lot of different ways. The shoulder design on this is just pretty much designed to fail. We've got shoulder joints which are a mile away from the actual shoulders themselves, so it means any kind of leveraging you do on the arms pulls the shoulders off pretty much all of the time. We've got some loose aspects here and there, and I can't imagine they're going to be getting any better. The squidgy polycapness to it as well. Fighting against the actual full plastic joints means you're always going to make the polycaps move when trying to move the more stiffer joints, so it's a little bit of a mess in that design aspect too, but overall in the end, it does actually get into a very nice pose. The overall range of motion everywhere is not too bad. It's just the overall experience doesn't feel that great. That's the pose we get in the end, and it's decent, not bad. Getting there, not so nice though. So when it comes to the kind of solidness of the build on this, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of wiggle here and there in some joints. It's only when you're moving things that it starts to get a little bit on the hairy side. Anyway, going through everything. The neck is the old school polycap that does what the old school polycap does. The shoulder joint on this is pretty much horrendous. It just pops out all of the time because it's designed to almost leverage itself out from a distance. I'm not sure why they went with this kind of longer little stick, maybe to get a little bit more rising up at the shoulder, but it can be a little bit problematic. So the shoulder is the usual roll. This can move around just like so. And when it does come to raising the arm up, it is attached onto the shoulder like this. So that is the movement up and down and off. The arm itself is connected into the shoulder and does have a little bit of movement to itself. This flap also can move up and down like so. Upper arm can rotate around but gets blocked a little bit there. And the elbow is a simple single point bend like so. Standard wrist too, and flimsy. The ab crunch here is the classic 2 ball joint polycap. So there's 2 ball joints going in here, and you actually get a little more than I would have given this credit for. There is the side to side, again, not too bad. And you can rotate this all the way around. Front skirts are on ball joints so they can move up and down and out and in ever so slightly if you separate them during the build. Side skirts can rotate forward and back and move up and down ever so slightly. The waist joint in here is static and does not move at all. When it does come to kicks, there's a lot of clashing of armor, so the leg does move out to the outside just like so. So that is the kick that you do get. Block to the back, and you do get a little bit of a splits, but not too much. Full rotation at the upper leg, but again blocked and kind of wiggles off. See what I mean by a bit flimsy? The knee bend here is what seems like a double joint. Yep. The knee joint here is a double joint, so there is the bend, there's it straightened out, there's the bend, and there's it. Oh, I forgot just how likely to fall apart polycap kits are. Last up then is the ankle, so there it is all the way forward and all the way back. That is actually quite nice. You've got a little bit of a flap that moves too, and we do have a toe that moves downwards and upwards just like so. This side to side movement in here is decent enough as well. So overall, when it does come to the posability, it is flimsy, somewhat limited, but still somehow all works out in the end. So anyway, that right there is it for the review of the high-grade Victory 2 Assault Buster Gundam. Overall, this to me is ex-Silver tier and pretty much what I would expect from one of the Revive era high grades. When it does come to the overview of this, it's visually very nice. They've nailed the kit entirely when it does come to the looks, but when it does come to the articulation, the accessories, and the overall build, it could be a whole lot better if you are comparing it to high grades of today's standards. Just like I mentioned, aesthetics is its strongest aspect. This looks like it walked right on out of the anime. The design and the color is perfect. It is missing some colors on some recessed aspects and a couple of little bits around back, but pretty much the Gundam itself is pretty much fully color accurate. The backpack does need a couple of stickers too, but they're recessed nicely and they are all around to the back. Get this thing panel lined up and it will look like an absolute high grade little masterpiece. It is a very handsome high grade. When it does then come to the articulation, this is okay, it's not great. You will get some basic poses out of it, but the more you actually layer onto this, all those over the top parts will kind of restrict that even further. The Gundam itself does have decent normal articulation on it. Actually, it had a little bit more than the sum of its parts and it surprised me to some degree. However, the shoulders can be a little bit awkward and things do clash a little bit, especially around the upper legs and the skirting armor. When it does come to the accessories in here, these could have been so much better. They're very nice and visually they do look cool, but once you get in a little bit closer, you see all of those hollow parts and the heavy reliance of stickers on the shield. We do get the core fighter in here as well, but a part of me really does think if Bandai had left out the core fighter entirely and just given us fully fledged weapons, that would have been a whole lot nicer personally. It is cool to have a little core fighter in here for display as well, but it feels a bit vestigial when the weapons could have been somewhat better. Lastly then, when it does come to the build, this is a basic old school, or should I say mid-school high grade kit. It's sandwiching parts over polycaps and there isn't really too much when it comes to the engineering or interesting aspects to the build itself. The finished piece then is a little bit funny in parts. I've popped off the legs a few times at the upper thigh, down at the knee, the shoulders come off all of the time, and some of the weapons do kind of clash with some aspects. Again, not a bad build, it's not gonna fall off your shelf on you, but it does take a little bit of thinking before handling to make sure it doesn't fall to bits. Overall, this is a kit for display, not play, and will fit into any high-grade collection and will look beautiful, and even pulls off some cool poses decently on your shelf. But yeah, that right there is it for the review. Overall, a fairly nice kit, and I do love the overall look. If you do want one of your own, I got mine right here through those fantastic people over at Bai. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time. It wouldn't be the end of the video without special thanks to each and every single one of you guys for watching my videos, and special thanks to the channel members and the members over on Patreon, including Caleb, Engelhardt, Joe, RG59061, Scotty Thomas, Simon, and Van Fawn.